Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
See, JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Do you see any of the aggro crag? Was any of that left over?
No, unfortunately not.
No?
I'm taking some of that home.
Definitely not is the barn burner that Leaf Cassidy and Tiger Rally thing was, but we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends soon.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
It's still real to me, damn it.
He kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put the Selena Vega on a pole match.
And I mean, Big E's got Whale performing in his entrance, so I feel like
Wale.
they would.
Wale.
I don't listen to. Okay, well, I don't listen to him, so I apologize to Wale.
This is in the mail, my good sir.
No, it wasn't. Oh.
I feel like Vince is just gonna have them team together and be like, have them called Woo Bro. Like they're just gonna be the Woo Bros. Like, anyway.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely, and
then you can listen to us too.
Strap on and balls only on Wrestling Past and Present.
This is Gangrel, the Vampire Ward, and you're listening to Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Fulis.
And I'm Mongo.
In today's episode, we are journeying back to TNA. We have been running down the pay-per-views of TNA 2005. And up today is Sacrifice 2005.
It's been one of our more popular episodes, not just monthly, but over the course of doing the TNA episodes. So humble brag on my part there. It was one of the ideas that I came up with that was halfway decent. And I didn't think we were going to get the support we've had for it, if that makes any sense. I didn't think it was going to be as popular, I guess the best way to put it. But I'm glad that you guys like it. And to be honest, a lot of this stuff I remember hearing about, but I probably didn't see it. So it's kind of cool to go back and see it and just continue. And it breaks up the monotony of like, let's watch WWE or WCW or ECW. It's a refreshing kind of breath of fresh air into our podcast once a month.
No, I agree, and I love that we can kind of take the Wayback Machine and go to some of these years, like you said, maybe things you've only heard of or you vaguely remember, because it wasn't like the WWE Network back in the day. We could rewatch a pay-per-view you really enjoyed or rewatch a taping. They had just announced then during this pay-per-view that they were having a Spike TV deal, so this was going to be their first exposure. So for a lot of us, the first 3 years of the company, we didn't get to see. It wasn't like AEW today where they held a press conference. You knew the dates of the first show, how to buy it, how to watch it. That's the smart way to do it, is tell someone about your product, why they should watch it, and where to watch it. TNA kind of had bad, ways of telling that and disseminating that to the public. So sometimes their products just got lost in the translation. It wasn't until they went on Spike TV that we got to see it. But like Roland said, to echo, it was a great idea, and we thank you, because I also like going back, and our listeners definitely do, because we average almost 40 episode on a TNA episode, or more than even double than like a WWE episode sometimes. So it's definitely popular. We appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of echo that, we just can't stress it enough. If you're a true wrestling fan, we recommend get the Impact Plus app, so you can follow along and watch these shows that we cover. The app isn't the most user-friendly app in the world at all, but if you can deal with Peacock, you can probably deal with this. And it's reasonably priced too. So definitely get the Impact Plus app, because there are some great matches to go back and watch from TNA.
Yeah, I totally agree. We lucked out with getting all the content we have for TNA. It may be a pain to get to sometimes, but it's cool that it's all there.
And I wish some of the Impact episodes would be uploaded. There's some years, there's some gaps, and I'm really sad because March 2008 is like a big chunk that's missing. I'm like, the year when I went down a couple times. Like, I just want to see the one again, because I vaguely remember the show I went to, because I was more excited that I was there. But it'd be cool to be able to relive it again, to kind of see what other memories besides the aggro crag kind of come to my mind, or Don West out in the parking lot.
Hawking $5 T-shirts of Jeff Hardy going.
No, Jeff Hardy wasn't showing up on this pay-per-view, remember?
Well, I'm just saying. Well, back then he probably was, though, when you went, right? And
who knows with him? Like, we love
That's
you,
true,
Jeff,
yeah.
on the show, but man,
yeah,
you know those little memes that go around social media? They're like, tag the person that you know won't show up to get $1 million. I'd be tagging Jeff Hardy because, you know, that's the dude that, like, okay, guys, we have to be there at 3 p.m. He's strolling at 4 a.m., you know, shaking his Dunkin's iced coffee. The ice is going around. You're like, oh, cool. Glad you're an hour late, but you brought a coffee for yourself.
you made it.
You made it.
Yeah, you made
It's
it.
like, hey, he's late, and the reason he's late. I'm
He's
guilty of that, so I know it's true.
Like he said, he's like shaking it. He's like, I had to get my donkeys.
So let's get.
Everybody worldwide is going to be like, what the fuck did he just say?
I know.
Again, that's
Yeah, for those listening that aren't from New England, Dunkin' Donuts, a popular fast food breakfast place.
and in the area, a lot of people call it dunks, donkeys, whatever. People, there's, you know, and they kind of took the donut off of it, so it's kind of just
it's just Dunkin' now, I think.
But yeah, so yeah, it's if people worldwide are not in you know East Coast New England area, it's like a Starbucks except it's not as expensive, and it's pretty much
And
what it
it's
is.
like-
Through coffee.
It's the Vince Russo of coffee stores because it's the most inconsistent coffee you'll ever get.
Oh man, now you can't shit on Vince Russo. We're trying to get him on the show at some point. We're trying to be friends with him, Mongo.
Oh, I'm not crapping. I'm just saying, like, it's like his booking style.
That was a compliment.
Just because it's on the backhand of something doesn't mean it's not.
So sorry, Vince. I'm so sorry.
I was gonna say I didn't think they served their coffee on a pole, but
They hand it to you out the window now because of COVID with a pole. They're I don't know if anybody else, not even remotely related to anything we're going to talk about today, but have you gone to any of the places fast food wise where like they stick the reader out the window on a pole, and you have to put the card like in the chip reader? I've only had it happen a couple of times, but they're like it's like Drew McIntyre's sword, and they like lay it out the window, and you have to like find the slot and put the card in. Yeah, except now they do that with coffee on a pole. So payment on a pole, coffee on a pole. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is Vince Russo. Maybe he does have something to do with it. Good call. Both of you, good call.
No, it's like the joke I used to always make. I know it's been around forever, but it's if you like Dunkin' Donuts, what you do is you walk in, slap $5 down on the counter, and say, "Surprise me! You're gonna mess it up anyway."
Yeah, but then you've seen the memes going around that's like, you know, that was terrible, but I'll see you again tomorrow. Like,
It's true.
I guess we can add Dunkin' Donuts to the list of people that won't be sponsoring this podcast.
Hey, it's a good criticism. We're trying to help. We're trying to.
That's true.
The product. Consistency is key. You know, we're only trying to help.
So let's jump right into Sacrifice 05. 10 total matches to discuss. 9 on the main card, 1 on the pre-show. Your pre-show match was Apollo and Sonny Siaki getting a win over Jarrell Clark and Mikey Betts. I was thinking Mookie Betts for some reason. Match went pretty short, 4.5 minutes. These are kind of, the cruiserweight or X Division guys. I think they were just put out there to get the crowd going. But again, you would think they would get a little bit more time. But I know they had the pre-show match. They had a segment with Jeff Jarrett and Mike Tenay to get to and stuff like that. So I would think it would be if I had to guess, a pretty action-packed 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, it was probably, like you said, a fast-moving, fast-paced match. I don't think it was one of those like rest hold type of matches where they just, they were probably moving around, flying around a bit. And to be honest, I think low key Apollo and Sonny Siaki might have been one of the more relevant tag teams at the time that maybe didn't do as much as people thought they might have. They were pushing them kind of a bit, which we've seen them on every show pretty much. But they just never quite got there. I don't know if one of them, we're watching this, so maybe one of them will just disappear and we'll know that one of them left, like when we watch it month by month, but we don't know what's coming next month, obviously. But it makes you wonder if maybe one of them left, or if because Jeff Jarrett has said on some of his podcasts that he was high on a lot of these guys, like a lot of these people in the early days, he was very high on. So it's surprising they didn't get more popularity and more fame and do more in the business.
I think the biggest problem is just how, like we talked about, were disseminated to the public. I think the problem was their exposure of them. It wasn't so much that they maybe, they weren't talented, because they were absolutely talented, or didn't have chemistry, or couldn't get over. I just think they didn't have enough exposure. And that was a lot of TNA's problem. That's kind of what led into their downfall, unfortunately, is overexposure with certain things. But they just didn't have the eyes on the product that you needed at the time. So, you have people like Sonny Siaki, Apollo, Sanjay Dutt, Eli Skipper, not getting the views that they should get to help elevate them to the next levels, or being taken seriously. That's why a lot of WWE fans were preconditioned to, oh, well, I haven't seen them, so they obviously suck if I've never seen it, because they had that entitlement of, well, they're not on cable, because WWE was revolutionary when they got their cable deal. WCW was revolutionary when they got the cable deal, because mainstream TV didn't have wrestling for a while. You had to watch it, closed circuit television, or you had to find other ways to watch it. And now it's even easier with the advent of the internet and Twitch and other streaming devices. You can watch it. But back in 2005, it was pretty much, if you didn't have a cable deal, you were dead. I mean, look at ECW when they had a cable deal and then lost it.
Speaking of Twitch, there's a guy that I watch on Twitch, Daddy Dimmu. And one of the people commented on his video during a Twitch stream the other day about the way the game was going. It was like it was the worst laydown since Nash to Hogan. So I commented in the thing. So hopefully, I know his username is you Sith bastard. I'm hoping that he does listen. If he does, shout out to you. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, it's one of those things where like the guy's like, oh yeah, I will. So like hopefully he does, and if he does, hopefully he likes it. Just wanted to. It was Mongo said Twitch, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Absolutely. So we start the main card off with a 6-man tag team match. We have Chris Sabin, Shark Boy, and Sanjay Dutt getting a win over Elix Skipper, Simon Diamond, and David Young in about 7.5 minutes. I thought the match was, it was a decent match. It wasn't anything to write home about. Here's my problem. It seems like every TNA pay-per-view we do, they always start off with some 4-way or 6-man X Division match. Like, change it up a little bit. Every time and I get it, you're trying to get the crowd going, and they think that's the way to do it. But like, you have to have a little bit of variety too. Like, you could start off with something else. Like, I would have thought the Abyss match might have been a good way to start the show. So the match itself was all right, but the only thing I kept thinking about was like, it's just the same thing that they always start the show off in the same fashion.
Well, I feel like at that time they thought they had to have something that was like high flying to like get the crowd going too. I wonder if maybe they overthought it too much, because like you said, if you're going to start every pay-per-view that way, it gets kind of predictable. It's like, hey, we're going to have an X Division match first out of the gate or whatever. But I think what they were going for was probably that high flying, get the fans going, which it to a point did. But like you said, it's also kind of predictable if that's what they're going to do every single week. So it definitely, it's not a bad match or a bad spot, but yeah, it gets predictable if that's how they're going to lay out their every show. But yeah, I totally agree. That was a good point, that it does seem like it's either a 4-way or a 6-man or some weird scramble type of match, like a, X Division elimination match or whatever. It seems to be their idea to start a show is to have them go out there and tear the house down, which, I mean, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just maybe have that go on second once or twice versus going on first every time.
No, it again goes back to the overexposure, because that's the thing is they were like the whole, we got to go big or go home mentality, which is a great mentality to have. Like, let's go out there and deliver. But the problem is like Tim said on, many TNA episodes, the way they put their card in the match order, it's just like a roller coaster, like booking, like, oh, this match, this match. Like, you'd have like to quote Tim, let me up match, and then you would have like that was just there for me. It's just, they didn't know how to stack their cards, so that was kind of the issue too, is you watch these, you're like, you up and down, so you'll be watching the TV and then you'll be scrolling your phone. You'll be watching the TV, then you'll be scrolling your phone. It didn't really keep your attention much, some of the matches. So it kind of killed the momentum on the pay-per-views.
Yeah, no, I agree. Next up is a singles match. You have Alex Shelley getting a win over Shocker in about 9 minutes here. Just Roland's doing a hand gesture for those. Actually, nobody can see this, but
Well, you guys, you're not nobodies.
Yeah, that's true. I actually really enjoyed this one. I didn't have much expectations for this. I thought it would be a good match, but nothing too spectacular. But I was really impressed with this one.
You were shocked?
I was kind of shocked. Yeah, I mean, I knew Alex Shelley, Motor City Machine Guns, but Shocker I really wasn't familiar with until we started watching these TNA shows, and he can absolutely go. This is a sleeper match for me. I really enjoyed this one, and it probably could have gone a little bit longer. Actually, I was really impressed with this one.
This match could have started off the show too. This could have been a good match to start the show. I will say this: guys like Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, they might be low key the most popular wrestlers in TNA that like mainstream people don't know. That nobodies essentially. I mean, when they come to, there's a lot of fans that only watch WWE or WCW when it was mainstream, and that's it. So it's some of these fans don't know. It's like some of the Japanese guys. Like we might have heard about them, but we don't know who they are or what they do. So it's very similar in that aspect. That Sabin, Shelley, guys that never actually went to WWE, they may be overlooked, but they are fantastic performers. Probably one of the best tag teams ever, and I'm saying that like ever. Sabin and Shelley, and they hadn't started teaming up yet at this point, but I'm just saying Alex Shelley, one of those guys that is often overlooked as one of the better performers of the generation that we're talking about, of the 2005 to 2015 or whatever. He had some starts and stops towards the end and whatnot, but and to be fair, Shocker did surprise me a little bit here. I haven't been a real big fan of Shocker, right, which, like I said, it's one of those things that is kind of a running thing. Like Mongo sent the thing saying my favorite wrestler was on TV or was wrestling, and I thought he was Alberto Del Rio. Like he kind of looked like him a little bit, but anyhow, definitely, like Tim said, a surprisingly good match, because on paper you're kind of just like meh, like it's going to be okay, but it actually was a pretty good match.
No, I agree. The chemistry they had was incredible. And just seeing them both work together in a way where they put on a good match, but they told the story. They were selling, they were working legs, working arms. So they weren't just jumping around like, Jim Cornette likes to say. They weren't just flippy flopping, and they were putting wrestling into it. There's single leg crabs. There was all these different moves they were doing that you didn't expect maybe an Alex Shelley to do, but you forget how technically he is. Like kind of like Jack Evans. Like I feel like, I compare him to like a Jack Evans on AEW or Angelico, like they kind of remind me of the Motor City Machine Guns, but a little bit more elevated with that wrestling talent. And it's another one of those teams I feel like people outside of AEW know, and like Decker Rollins' point, people didn't really know Alex Shelley or Chris Sabin, and then they teamed up, became, again, I agree, one of the greatest tag teams in wrestling. I mean, if you haven't seen the match with them and the Young Bucks, you got to go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's probably one of the best matches you'll ever see. It's what made me a fan of the Young Bucks, not to divert too much, but this match was good. I forget Shocker had a lot of good ability. I just think his persona was hard. He just didn't have a character to sell to the crowd. He was good. He was focused, but he was like a Taka Michinoku. Like he was fun to watch, but you didn't really care about him.
Taka Michinoku reference. That might be the first one on the show's history.
No, only one when he broke his face once.
Oh yeah, at the Royal Rumble when Kai and Tai kept running out.
That's true. Okay, all right.
Shit whipped, and then all of a sudden the last time it came out, it was just Funaki. Yeah, because that one time. But like, this might be the first and only reference when he's not on the show. Like,
yes.
He may not come up ever again on any show that he's not on. So,
no, just because they're both super talented, just didn't have that like charisma to get over, and it's sad because it's like you're so talented, but you can tell that they were just hyper focused on only wrestling and nothing else. Like they were like, no.
I mean, you could have just went with like Lance Storm, but like
But I feel like they're not that boring. They're slightly above a Lance Storm.
Like at least it's like you said though, it's a person that is very skilled, but the personality wise just didn't have whatever it was to connect with the fans. That's how Lance Storm might be, again, low key one of the better technical wrestlers of all time. It's just kind of overlooked because he doesn't have that personality.
Like a Dean Malenko.
Dean Malenko.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like a Shocker.
Next up, we have Abyss with James Mitchell and Lance Hoyt. Abyss can get the win in about 9 minutes here. Just a couple things before I get to the actual match. they were kind of like the whole story was like there was only room for one giant in TNA, and that was Abyss. James Mitchell cuts this promo before the match, saying, there's been many giants from Andre, but Abyss is the best. But like, I never really considered Lance Hoyt to be a giant. I know he's a big guy, he's tall, but I never put him in that category of like a giant. So I didn't quite kind of get that kind of setup to the match. And then the other thing I just saw this now as we were introducing this match, it's just how good James Mitchell was, like his promos and his character. They were awesome. And I was just thinking, like, if he could like make a comeback now, like I just picture him with like Malachi Black right now. And I think that would be like just kind of like a fancy pairing, which is probably never going to happen. But I was just thinking he would fit perfectly with Malachi Black. Match itself was decent. They put Abyss over, I think, which was right, because they're trying to build him up as the monster of TNA. But I just feel bad for Lance Hoyt because like you said, it doesn't seem like he ever wins anything. So that's why I was happy recently on AEW where he was able to beat Moxley for the title there. So, but I thought the match was good. I just didn't quite get the storyline here.
Yeah, the storyline behind this match was just absolute, like, but this match was awesome. I mean, Lance Hoyt came out looking like Test, but like with his gear. But I mean, he could go. Like that drop kick at the end, like holy crap! And the transition to the black hole slam and him flipping around, like for someone who's 6'9", he could move. And it kind of felt like they just were doing this to showcase, look how big and bad we are, like almost making fun of Vince's like fascination for big guys. I think that's what this was we're going to have a match with giants, with people who they're very tall, but they're not really giant-esque.
Well, and another case of two guys that never necessarily made it to WWE, but are actually very popular characters. I mean, AEW has, Lance Archer now as potentially one of their top guys. And it's again, looking back on it from 2005, there's some talent here. These two guys could go. And like you said, I mean, some of the stuff that Abyss was doing for his size, some of his moves, he was so smooth for a big guy. Like when he got you for and I know the black hole slam was kind of like the boss man slam, except spinning. So it wasn't like it was, but still he would hit that transition so smooth sometimes. Like the guy would come off the ropes, he'd whip around, hit him with it. And it would just, it's almost like the Randy Orton power slam. When the guy comes off the ropes, he does it just so smooth. Abyss is one of those guys that does the same thing. And I think very underrated in that aspect. And again, Lance Hoyt, one of those guys that it's unfortunate that he isn't more mainstream, because he is, again, he's not like a monster, but he's definitely one of the more talented, bigger guys in the business. I mean, that guy can do a moonsault standing on the top rope. And I know we've mentioned this before, but he'll walk the top rope like the Undertaker and then do a moonsault off of it. For a guy that's that big, that's pretty damn impressive. You didn't see Kevin Nash doing that. You know what I mean? Like, and he about Kevin Nash's size. So, or like Manga said, Test. So it was two bigger guys, but it didn't feel like when WWE has like a monster match, when they have like the Great Khali against a Big Show, you're like, oh, fuck me. You're like, this match is going to be brutal. This didn't feel like that at all. So that kudos to TNA for that, for having two bigger guys have a really good match.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it definitely was not your typical monster match. And we have two Test references in the show, too, and a Takuma Inuka reference. So you never know what you're going to get here on Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.
I mean, the past is in there for a reason.
That's true.
Hey, and to be fair, Andrew Martin, he died too soon. It's one of those things where, we like to at least acknowledge that. I mean, one of those guys, what might have been, I mean, he had the look, he had the size, never quite got there, and then he unfortunately passed away too soon, Yeah. So it's nice to, bring up some of these guys sometimes. They might be very obscure references, but if you can tell when we grew up as fans, because that's, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. He looked a lot like Test. He really did, so.
Oh yeah, it was a compliment too, because Test was a good wrestler, had a good look, like you said. He was basically like a 6'9" Edge. He had that look, and very 90s look. It went over, and just I think the problem was he just couldn't go a certain style. He had to go a certain style. And I think some wrestlers didn't want to work that. but he had a good run in TNA, so I kind of hope we get to cover some of his pay-per-views when he shows up here, because him and Matt Morgan, had a good run in TNA. And Matt Morgan was another one was kind of cast off. There's some people who get cast off, but this company gives him a chance. Like this match, again, not to keep shadowing it back, but it gave someone like a Lance White a chance to grow, because he went to NXT. He was Vance Archer in NXT for a while. Vince had him and let him go. Like it just shows that sometimes there's talent that they don't get that enough look, where even Vince is like, I don't want you. Because I guarantee if he had seen what he saw now, he probably would have kept him and put him on Raw, because he's the perfect size of what Vince wants. So I never got that.
So you're telling me that Vince has people and that he just releases them out of the blue? No way.
No, that's not like him.
Not trying to break the proverbial fourth wall, but yeah, it's true, man. It's damn true.
So I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much, but while we're talking about NXT, their reports are that Triple H is being blamed for NXT's failure against AEW, and that's why he's going to be removed from NXT, or being in charge of NXT. And I'm thinking, like, what is your alternative? The people that are running Raw and SmackDown right now? Like, that's like, is that what you're going to put in charge of NXT? Like, I don't understand the logic there.
Don't do it,
But
Bruce.
I
said, don't do it, Bruce.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the curtain call all over again. Someone's got to take the fall. It's got to be Triple H.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't get it.
Yeah. Next up, we continue the saga between Three Life Crew, BG James, Kip James, Monty Brown. It's a tag team match between Ron Killings and Conan against Kip James and Monty Brown, with BG James as a special guest referee. Before I get into the match, though, if you want a good laugh, watch the interview that BG James does with Shane Douglas before the match. And Shane Douglas, let's just say, had a little bit of a hard time asking the questions.
Don't break the fourth wall.
Yeah, it's almost like I think it was Sid Vicious with Mean Gene Okerlund, and he screwed up, and he goes, "Let's try that again." And Mean Gene goes, "Oh, we're live, pal." That's all I was thinking.
He's like, "Let's go again." It's like, no, it's live. It's live.
The match was, it is what it is. It wasn't anything spectacular. I'm glad we finally got a decision after months and months of the back and forth. What side is PG James on? He sided with Three Life Crew, where he, let Conan hit Kip James with the chair and counted the 1, 2, 3. But this storyline just took forever to get to a conclusion. It was kind of like a lackluster conclusion. Like, he just sided with somebody. It wasn't anything more involved than that. So that I'm just, the biggest thing is I'm just glad that the storyline was over.
Well, and it's not necessarily over, because if you know a little bit of a backstory, they end up teaming together down the road, it's VKM and stuff like that. So it's over for the sake of being over at this point, which you kind of wonder if it made more sense to have BG and Kip be together from the rip, like at this point, if they had gone the other way, if they would have had a little more steam, because they could have had a feud with Three Live Crew for a while, like leading off of this. Like, it could have been a hot feud that like people would have been invested in, because they did so many months of what side is Road Dogg on. So it makes you wonder if they made the right decision or not. I mean, obviously at the time the fans were excited that he picked Conan and Ron Killings, but playing devil's advocate, would it have been smarter? I mean, you could have had almost maybe the rest of the year a feud between these guys built off of the build up to this. So it makes you wonder. And again, that's nitpicking, but yeah, like, this might have been the most disappointing match on the whole card, to be honest with you. The match itself, there wasn't much there. It just, I mean, at this point, you have, your workers in the match are Killings and Billy Gunn. And then you have Monty Brown, who's still kind of green and kind of like a bull in a china shop. And then you have Conan, who's kind of on his way out. He's a little bit older, not the same Conan that, was in the mid to late 90s at WCW. So it was just more of storytelling than a wrestling match, I guess is the best way to put it.
And it was just a story, just like, not jump too far ahead, like the Team Canada stories, the story that I'm already kind of sick of at this point. And, at this point, we're only be 8 months into their year. So this is, when they're starting to get their big buildups to their, October anniversary pay-per-view, And it's like, this is the storyline they're still running with. I couldn't imagine having to watch this on weekly TV, how just tired of these promos you would get, because it just didn't really mean anything, because it just felt like it was dragged on. The match itself was funny. Like, I like when Monty Brown like made fun of Road Dogg's little shake, rattle, and roll thing. Like, that was kind of comical when he was like trying to do it. And like Roland said, Bull and China Shop, that's the perfect reference, because he would just like run around and just like mash people, and people would just take the crazy bumps for him. But it was just kind of there, and I think it was just there to be kind of comical at points too, because that's what it felt like. It was like a comedy match, kind of.
At least he wasn't like Mongo McMichael. And no offense to Mongo, we know he's battling some stuff, but like, you think of like ex-football players that got in the ring that looked like they were like not supposed to be there. Like, at least
Goldberg.
he wasn't. Well, no, but like, at least he wasn't to that level. Like, Monty Brown could at least have a match. I mean, he was just turned up to 15 the whole match versus like, you know, like the Ultimate Warrior was. Like, there was times where the story where Andre the Giant, you know, was telling him to slow down, and he kept running, and then he just held his fist out one time and let Warrior run right into his fist. And he was like, that'll slow him down. Like, he's like, I stopped him from like, that's how Monty Brown was. He was just go. And you think of, at least he had enough athleticism to make it look good, because Mongo McMichael was, you know, the same kind of way. He would kind of be quick, but like, he looked so clumsy in the ring at times. Like, there's so many memes and different things of how bad he looked. So, I mean, I guess we need to appreciate that Monty Brown at least had the athleticism to pull it off. However, he was always turned up to like 15 or 20 instead of like 8 or 9. It just sometimes looked worse than it was, I guess. And again, not crapping on Mongo, I'm just saying, not our Mongo, but Mongo McMichael, saying that, you know, it's like, by comparison, a guy that, you know, has athleticism but just doesn't quite have the wrestling savvy, I guess the best way to put it. So, and again, you know, hopefully Mongo pulls out of this. It doesn't look good again, so I don't, you know, I'm not trying to crap on Steve Mongo McMichael, but I'm just saying it could have been that bad. And again, not throwing him under the bus. I'm just saying, by comparison, a lot of times when you have a crossover like that, it just doesn't quite work out. And Monty Brown, again, they make him seem like he's this big football star. It's like Mongo said before, like our Mongo has said before, he was on the practice squad. He never really played. I mean, he sort of played, but you know, again, kudos to him for at least being able to do it. And it's too bad we didn't get to see him at like 8 or 9. Like, maybe it could have been a little more controlled chaos versus what it was.
I like when they were announcing that they had other NFL stars in the crowd, and it was just more practice squad players.
Yeah.
I was like, from this team. So I Googled them. Like, it's almost like when Vince uses superstar. It's like, I don't think you're using the term the way. It's like, you're not using it right. What's that Igno Montoya line? Like, that word you keep using, I don't think it means what you think it means. It's what it reminded me of. Like, they're not NFL stars. In fact, like, they made it further than I'll ever make it, but it's like they're the practice squad. To me, you can think, oh, they're NFL players. Like, that's true, but star, it's kind of a loose word.
Yeah.
They're practice squad all-stars.
Next up is Christopher Daniels and Austin Aries. Christopher Daniels going to get the win in 9.5 minutes here. I thought the match was really good. You know, Austin Aries, you know, playing the kind of the TNA outsider card here. And Christopher Daniels is your X Division champion at the time. But yeah, the match was solid. I mean, I could have went a little bit longer, I think. You know, but really enjoyed this one. Austin Aries can go. Didn't have a successful run in WWE, which is a little bit of a shame. And obviously nothing, no bad things to say about Christopher Daniels. So really enjoyed this one. So it's a good one to watch.
Austin Aries was the guy that got a banana over in WWE, though. So having the banana in his pocket. So, and again, that sounds like a dirty reference, but it was in his shirt pocket. Anyhow, yeah, no, it's weird that this match wasn't for the title. You would have thought if you're going to have a match, you may as well just have it for the title, regardless. But especially if Daniels is going to go over, it doesn't hurt anybody if it was for the title, because Daniels would have kept it. But I think this is where the pay-per-view does pick up a little bit. I know that we're going to get to a little bit of a cluster in a couple of matches that, I mean, wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but it also was a bit of a cluster. But like from here on out, to be honest with you, the pay-per-view definitely picks up. Not that it was really slow to begin with, but coming off of that kind of cluster of the Monty Brown 3 Live Crew thing, this match made you realize what you were here to see and what you were in store for coming up for the rest of the show.
You know, this is cool because this is kind of when I watched a little bit of Ring of Honor here and there, and it was cool to see Austin Aries, who had made his name in Ring of Honor, fighting Christopher Daniels, and they worked well. They have really good chemistry, and they had a lot of false finishes. After the BME, and then just the 450 that was hit, everything was just so fluid in this ring. They both told a good story, but like you guys said, it should have been for the title. I think it would have meant something, because even if Austin Aries lost, they still made him look strong, and that's how you do a debut when you don't want your champ to look bad. You let them look strong. AEW reminds me of that, like on Rampage the other night. They had a squash match with Fuego and Miro, and you knew that Fuego wasn't going to win, but they let him look strong. They let him look good. And you can do a debut for someone and make them look good. This is obviously not like a Fuego situation, but it's showing someone who the Impact Universe, TNA Universe at the time hadn't seen, saying, look, here is a guy that you should check out. Put him Chris Daniels, who can go with just about anyone, like Roland said before. And they had a banger of a match and really picked up the card, like Roland said. Keep stealing your phrase. I don't know why. You're just popular today.
Well, and to give AEW some credit, I didn't catch all of Rampage because I forgot to set it on my DVR because I'm an idiot. Was it not refreshing to not have the announced team be the same? Like, it was nice. It was such a refreshing thing. Not that Shivani, JR, and Excalibur are bad together, but it was refreshing that they were smart enough to have a little bit different, because it almost had like a dark vibe to it with the people they had on commentary, because Taz does has done a lot of the dark stuff and has done like different things. And, it was cool to have Jericho and Taz, and like, it made it feel different, even though it was the same in a good way. Like, it gave you a refreshing, and no offense again to Shivani, JR, any of those guys, but like, it just felt different, even though it was the same. And kudos to them. I know, like I said, this is an AEW show, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Next up is a singles match. You have Jerry Lynn returning from a shoulder injury. He's taking on Sean Waltman. Plenty of time here. You get 15 and a half minutes. Jerry Lynn, they're playing up the whole shoulder injury throughout the whole match. I really like this one, and we mentioned this before. Sean Waltman could go back in 2005. Like, he was not washed up by any means. This was a great match, and it reminded me just how underrated Jerry Lynn is. Like, I've seen some of his matches. I haven't watched a whole lot, but he's impressed me every time that I've watched him. And I'm now kudos to AEW for giving him a coach's role. But this was an excellent match, and then you had the tease at the end where you thought they had a sign of respect, but then Waltman turns on them, does a shoulder breaker on the barricade. And I thought this was really good match, and nice to see this one actually got a little bit of time. This is the longest match, second longest match of the night, but the longest match we've had up to this point. So I really enjoyed this one.
It makes you like wonder again, like we brought up before, people that have been in WWE that didn't work out, like the Lance Archer, Lance Hoyt situation, stuff like that. It makes you wonder, like, why Vince and the WWE let somebody like Waltman go. Like, I get that, like, he had some legal stuff and he got himself in a little bit of trouble, and drugs or alcohol, whatever was also the issue leading towards it. Obviously, it was substance abuse of some sort. And again, not crapping on Sean Waltman. A lot of wrestlers have had their issues with stuff because they do. It's a grind for them, and it just makes you wonder. Like, seeing a match like this, it's like, wait, like Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes. Like, wait, you let that guy go? Like, what are you, fucking stupid? Like, you let that guy go? Like, why? And it's funny because if you think back to the mid 90s era, like, they would put the people in the ring with Sean Waltman because it was a good measuring stick. So, like, it's just weird that I'm glad because TNA got a guy that, it wasn't, thankfully for Sean Waltman, it wasn't like when Scott Hall came into TNA and you could tell he really had issues and he was washed up and having trouble. He probably shouldn't have been on TV at certain points, shouldn't have been, but whatever. That's another story for another time. But, and again, like Tim said, Jerry Lynn might be another one of the less famous underdog names that can really go. And obviously a great wrestling mind, because like Tim said, again, he's with AEW as a agent / coach. I know they don't use the term agent, but it's just he's helping booking matches. He there for anybody to ask questions. Like, think about some of the agents that AEW has. I know, again, this isn't an AEW show, but I mean, you got guys that are coaches. You got like Arn, Tully's there, Jerry Lynn, Taz. Like, there's so many guys, Jake Roberts, so many guys that, and it's different eras too. Like, it's not just like all these old guys. Like, it's older. Like, you have Arn and Tully and Jake from kind of the same era. You have guys like Taz and the Big Show and Mark Henry from like the era that like we're talking about now. So like, they have they're smart about who they sign. Jerry Lynn, obviously, like Tim said, this might have been low key one of, if not the best match on the card. Like, this is a very good match. And the turn, the tease at the end. And then the one thing I will say, it was weird that Jerry Lynn had that thing with AJ Styles last pay-per-view, like where they were teasing and then they don't face each other. Instead, Waltman, like that was kind of weird. And I know that Joe and AJ face each other later on in the show, but it's almost like they timed that weird dissension between AJ and Jerry Lynn to then not capitalize on it.
Yeah, that's one of the big criticisms they had too, is they would tease things and it would never come to fruition. And they would toot their own horn than they would do it. Throughout the night, there would be times where and we're giving the people what they want. When, going back to Austin Aries real quick, they'd be like, this is who the internet wanted. Like, we listen to you, the fans. But they did. It was like they wanted to toot their own horn the one time they did. Like, look, we listened. Like, no, he was already working for you. You didn't listen. You were just like, sweet, they voted for someone we have under contract. But yeah, no, this match definitely, we use the term sleeper, but this was a legit sleeper. Like, you look on paper, you're like, Waltman, Jerry Lynn, no thanks. You watch the match, you're like, whoa, like where was this Sean Waltman in WWE? Like Roland said, like, where was his booking? But it's just, I think he had the stigma of kind of being the odd man out in the clique. Then he was the odd man out in the NWO, the odd man out in DX. So he was always like, the ring chaser. He was kind of like Kevin Durant of the WWE. Like, he would just go with whoever the champions, and he had the champion. So he always had that like go away heat, the X-Pac heat, as we joke about. So it's a shame because he was good, but he was always just seen as a tag along or an afterthought, I think, for a lot of places. So I think that's why people never took him seriously. This match is something that you can watch to show Sean Waltman should be taken seriously. I mean, he has literally destroyed his body on the indies. Like, I don't want to say the injury, but go watch YouTube. He talks about it on his podcast, that he's literally destroyed his body not once but twice doing the Bronco Buster and having to go to the hospital thinking he's dying, and still go back out and wrestle like months later when he's healthy. It's like, you're crazy. And this match shows that he had talent and he had a love for the business. It's just a shame that, like Roland said earlier, that his issues could have held him back, because he was a good worker. I mean, come on. He beat Scott Hall and Raw, one of the most infamous moments of wrestling history, as the 1-2-3 Kid.
With that ugly moonsault and the 69 pin. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the other thing too. Like, think about most recently, you had Cash Wheeler catch his arm on the hook of the turnbuckle. That's essentially what Waltman ended up catching his nether regions on. You know what I'm saying? So like, think about how much, like, you saw what it did to Cash Wheeler's arm. Like, think about what that could do to other body parts. So like you said, kudos to Sean Waltman for still doing the move afterwards. Like, that's one of those moves, like, you do it once and you're like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't need to ever do that again, like, ever. But it was such a popular move, he had to keep doing it. Well, he didn't have to keep doing it, but he kept doing it because it was so popular. And like I said, it's relevant because Cash Wheeler, a fluke thing where he just got knocked off the apron and happened to catch his arm on the hook of the turnbuckle. And you want to talk about, like, they made it seem like his arm was falling off. Like, and again, it was a gusher, don't get me wrong, but like, it makes you think, like, that hook hitting you between the legs probably doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I'm hurting just thinking about it.
And speaking of the I'm good, one of the best moments I've ever seen is when Zack Ryder did the 450. Matt Cardona did the 450. There's a funny YouTube clip. He does that, and afterwards they ask him, would you ever do that again? He's like, no, I'm good. Like, he hit it once, but it's just like his face is like, no. So like, Roland, I don't know, you just remind me of that, but just like that complete face. Like, whenever someone says, no, I'm good, I'm always going to see that in my head now. I'm just like, no.
I did it once. That's enough.
That's it. Next up is an 8-man tag match. You have Team Canada going to get a win over America's Most Wanted and the Naturals with Jimmy Hart in just over 11 minutes. I don't know. I wasn't invested in this one. You know my thoughts on the whole Team Canada storyline if you've been listening to the previous episodes. Like, I just don't understand it. The whole purpose of this, though, was to tease dissension between AMW and the Naturals. So I guess it kind of accomplished their goal by having Team Canada win. But I just didn't really care about this one. The match was so-so, but just there was nothing there to get me invested to watch this match and to care about it.
Another instance where I was waiting for Tim to do the A1 steak sauce reference.
Oh yes, yeah, A1 steak sauce in the match.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's one of those things where there's a lot of talent in this ring. Don't get me wrong, but like I said about the 3 Live Crew, Monty Brown's thing, there was 2 clusters on this show, and this was the second one. This just it. Again, it was just there, and there's a lot of talent in the ring, a lot of talent in the match, and it did absolutely nothing for me. And it's unfortunate because, again, like I said, there's really talented people in this match. It's not like it's 8 guys that can't wrestle. It's not like it's 8 Great Khali's facing each other. There's guys that can tear the house down. I mean, James Storm still doing it today. Bobby Roode's still doing it to Eric Young. There's still guys in there that are still wrestling at a high level today, and it did none of them any justice, I guess is the best way to put it. It was a very clustery. Anytime you have more than 6 people in a ring or in a match, it's going to be a cluster anyways, no matter how you book it, unless it's an elimination style where you can actually have a finish that is worth watching. And that's my hot take on all 6-man and 8-man matches. Like, you need to get rid of some of these motherfuckers at some point, because if not, the match is just going to be a cluster the whole time. And it's hard to watch just because there's so many bodies. It's hard to follow. One referee with 8 wrestlers, one of my philosophies, and again, it's a hot take, that like when you have matches like this, it should be elimination style, so that way it gets down to 2 guys or like 3 guys or enough where you can have a finish that's believable and that you don't feel like the whole match was just thrown together and it was a cluster.
That's why I think Survivor Series is always one of my favorite pay-per-views, because they do the multi-man matches, right? Because I don't think it's so much of a hot take as if it's the truth. Like, whenever you have, more than 4 people on this side of the rope, like you said, it's going to be a cluster if it's not done elimination style or done correctly. And this is a perfect example of why it becomes a cluster, because you have so many people going in and out. You don't know who's legal, who's not legal, because the referee doesn't pay attention. So you think someone's legal, but storyline wise, they're not. And then you have too much contrasting styles in this match, because you have the Naturals and America's Most Wanted, who have, more of a technical wrestling style, like a fight wrestling style, versus Team Canada, who's more of, like, at the time, besides Bobby Roode, kind of like the high flyer, kind of, running the ropes. So it's like the contrasting styles kind of killed this match too. And like Tim said, the 18th time they've had the Team Canada versus Team US storyline, and they're even pointing out the same cliche that the Naturals and America's Most Wanted hate each other, but they're working together because they hate Team Canada too. Like, can we just end the storyline? It's cooked at this point.
And another thing too, the whole Team Canada versus the USA thing, like, in real life, we don't hate Canada. Like, it doesn't make
We love
sense.
our friends to the north. What are you doing to us?
Like, we don't have any issues with them. So I never understood that aspect of that whole Canada versus USA thing either. Like, I just, like, we're not fighting with them in real life. So, like, why are we fighting with them in wrestling?
And the most interesting thing about this is that we got to see Scott D'Amore on TV this past week.
Mm-hmm.
The leader of Team Canada as a TNA Impact executive. So it's kind of cool. Again, I know we're throwing a lot of AEW stuff at you, but it's kind of cool, like the parallels between the 2 companies. I feel like AEW parallels TNA better than WCW. Like, I feel like it, and again, it might be a hot take, but like some of the stuff they did in TNA was really good. It was just overlooked. And I feel like AEW is doing a lot of the same stuff, except because they're on national TV, it's not overlooked. And I think that's the unfortunate thing. Like Mongo had mentioned, I don't remember if you mentioned it on the recording or not, but they had just announced, on the broadcast, a Spike TV deal. I can't remember, like I said, if you mentioned it while we were recording or not, but it's one of those things where, like, if Impact, TNA, whatever you want to call it, had that exposure on TNT or TBS, would it have made a huge difference? Because AEW, if they were on a second network that no one really had, or if they were on a lesser network, would they have the same steam? Like, yeah, they'd have followers, and it'd be like more like a cult following of like people that like hardcore wrestling fans. But like I said, to me, AEW parallels TNA a lot more than you think, unless you like sit back and actually think about it. And that's what this watching TNA once a month has done, has made me appreciate some of the stuff that they did that would have been fire had it been on a better network or more positioned to succeed.
Yeah. That's the other issues too, is they really wanted to get themselves the exposure. They really want to get themselves seen. Then some of the moves they make are questionable, or some of the ways they do it. So it's hard because they had the ideas of grandeur. They had this is what we want to show the world, but they didn't know how to execute it. And that's their big downfall. And that's why when people crap on TNA or things like TNA, Roland's not saying they're like TNA because they're signing against you guys. He's saying because the way they had their storylines and promotions, the way they had their matches, the way the wrestlers work together is what he's saying. He's not saying because they're signing XW guys, because I already know there's people out there who, no matter what you say, your words get twisted. So I'm going to defend it before they come out because we know how they are. But it was the lack of being seen, like you said, and then they do the pay-per-view. Well, no one's going to order your pay-per-view if they can't see your national product. So this Spike TV deal is what's going to elevate them to that next level. It's why they went up to the Monday Night Wars eventually. They wanted the exposure, but they rushed. They went too quick. They didn't let it slow burn, slow grow. And that's the lessons that other wrestling companies are going to learn. That's why AEW is mimicking the stuff but they're taking the right steps by launching Rampage last night, having an extra hour. So it's not 3 hours one night, but it's 3 hours in a week of primetime television. That's smart. WB, when they did it, it was revolutionary. When they added SmackDown, they only had Raw, you were like, whoa, they're adding a second show. That's smart. It was a slow burn. We thought we had a third one with NXT for a while until he killed it. But you got to expose yourself the right way to make sure that your audience is going to tune back in again. And these pay-per-views were great, but you didn't get to follow up and keep going on the storyline unless you could find it on that obscure channel, like you said.
Next up is the TNA, or the 2005 TNA Super X Cup Tournament Finals. This is a tournament to determine the number one contender for the X Division title. You have Samoa Joe and AJ Styles here. They get about 15 minutes here. Samoa Joe goes over with the win. He's undefeated so far in TNA. Again, this is an excellent match. I mean, this is AJ Styles, early AJ Styles here, and he could absolutely go. I mean, he still goes now, obviously, but this was a phenomenal match. Pardon the pun there. Roland's wearing the shirt today. It was fantastic. I mean, it's two guys that have great chemistry together, and they put on excellent match. Highly recommend watching this one. Both of these guys are still relevant today, but this might have been one of their better matches and some of their best work. And it's unfortunate that not a lot of people are exposed to it, as we mentioned throughout the show. But yeah, this one hit the mark for me.
So the tournament bracket, you listen to the names they had in this tournament. You had Samoa Joe against Sanjay Dutt. You had Alex Shelley against Shocker, which is what led to the match on the pay-per-view, because Shelley beat him. Anyhow, AJ Styles, Matt Bentley, Michael Shane, whatever you want to call him, and then Chris Sabin and Petey Williams. Like, it just, you think of the talent in these. I mean, so Joe runs through Dutt, and then he gets Alex Shelley and runs through him. Like Tim said, he's undefeated in TNA. And then AJ Styles beat Matt Bentley and Petey Williams on his way to get Samoa Joe. So they have, like, that's the one thing, like, looking at this bracket, it's like, man, look at the talent they had in 05. Just the pure wrestling talent that they had is crazy, because all of those guys, and you have two lower guys, in my opinion, in Matt Bentley and Shocker. Like, I guess those two are like the lower end, but everybody else, like even Sanjay Dutt, might be low key one of the better high flyer type wrestlers that's fun to watch. I mean, his gimmick was a little bit, but like at least like in the ring he could go, and it just shows you like you don't need to be well recognized. You don't need to have the John Cena name. You don't. If you can wrestle, people will watch it, and that's what AEW is capitalizing on. They're not heavy on the storyline, heavy on the overproduced, heavy on the promos being scripted and all this garbage. They let wrestling focus the show, and that's what TNA was trying to do here especially with the X Division, because fans they connected with the cruiserweight division in WCW way back in the day, and now they're kind of getting like a cruiserweight 2.0 with the X Division. I know that's not exactly what it was, but like think of and Sabin, and Shelley become a good tag team. You have Daniels as the champion of the division. Like it's just crazy to look at some of these names. And yeah, like Tim said, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, anytime they have a match, it's worth watching. Their chemistry was great, just like Daniels and either one of those guys. They would have some triple threat matches that were insane too. So it's just, I love TNA 05. That's so, I mean, I know there's some bad stuff here, but man, some of this stuff is amazing.
And this was what to me classic TNA is. This was probably low key of all the TNA episodes we've done. This was the best match of all of them. This was the best match that I've seen since we've been rewatching TNA. I'm kind of sad that I got deprived of seeing this when it first happened, because I had only seen maybe on a best of DVD clips of it. But this match is why Samoa Joe was very underrated on the indies and underrated on Ring of Honor and his other runs, unless you were a true fan. Like this was his run. Like this was when he was dominant and could show he could go, and just his coquina clutch, or as he called it back then, "You're my bitch," when he would just choke him out and AJ tapped. I didn't think, AJ would have put him over. It was great because it kept him going. And then he just looks at Christopher Daniels because he's on commentary, holds that trophy and just stares him down like, "You're next." It's like, I got my trophy, but your belt is next. And we get to cover that next month. So I'm really to go with foresight when we do this next month. I can't wait to cover that match with him and Christopher Daniels. Like, it's going to be great, because this is TNA. If you want to watch anything from TNA that'll make you a TNA fan, watch this match, because this is the kind of matches that Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and Kurt Angle when he comes in, and Christian Cage, which, spoiler alert, new Impact champion, TNA champion, is going to come in and do, what Jeff Hardy, when he was there and healthy, could do. They would have these kind of matches that just didn't get seen, and it's a shame, because this match right here showed why the X Division was probably one of the best wrestling divisions for a long time. And it only got better, and just unfortunately due to mismanagement and them getting scattered out, they couldn't sustain it. But the X Division was low-key what made people tune to TNA, and this match is a big example of it wasn't just people at 100 pounds flying around. It was people of all different shapes and sizes who could go and make the X Division title relevant. It wasn't just a cruiserweight title. It was legit their second-tier title that people were killing themselves in the ring to get. In this match, they were destroying themselves for that title. Well,
yeah, I
shot at it. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Like when you think of TNA, you think of Samoa Joe, you think of AJ Styles, and this match pretty much epitomizes TNA in a nutshell. So definitely an excellent match. So we have made it to our main event. It is a tag team match between Jeff Jarrett and Rhino against Raven and Sabu. Here's the stipulation. If Jarrett pinned Raven, he would earn an NWA title shot. But if Raven pinned Jarrett, then Jarrett could not receive a title shot for an entire year. So lots of stipulations here. Here's my problem with this match. It was supposed to be a normal tag team match. And then there was weapons out the ass in this match. And the referee just ignored every single one of them. The one thing that really caught my eye is Raven used a pizza cutter on Jarrett. And the pizza cutter's been on the news recently with the whole Nick Gage and Chris Jericho match and the whole Domino's thing, starting to pull their advertisement from AEW. So that really, 16 years later, pizza cutters are still in the news. The match itself was, I don't know if they were trying to recreate ECW here, because you have 3 ECW originals and then you have Jeff Jarrett, the outcast here. But that's kind of what it seemed like. So that might have taken away a little bit of the match. I thought the finish was good, where Rhino got the pin on Raven, so it kind of set little dissension between Jarrett and Rhino sets that up, and it also brings in it's Rhino, your next challenger for the TNA or the NWA title. So I thought the finish was clever, maybe a touch or a tad predictable. The match itself was all right. Again, I just think it had too much ECW in it for my liking.
Yeah, and no offense, this match should have never ended the show. I mean, it just it's one of those. It's kind of, that's the one thing that we can crap on, is that their placement and their booking of where the matches go seem to be really suspect at times, especially like Tim pointed out. Every pay-per-view starts with a 6-man tag or a weird whatever, but it just, again, it wasn't a terrible match. It's just the last match on a show should send you away happy and like, man, that was great, I want to see the next one. And that would have been the Joe and Styles match, or even the Waltman Jerry Lynn match would have made people go, man, that was wrestling, I want to see that again. And yeah, to Tim's point, it was like an ECW reunion show with Jeff Jarrett sprinkled in there. It's almost like he owned the thing. It's just like Tim said again, and I'm pretty much going to echo everything Tim said, because it was predictable. You had a feeling that no matter what, and TNA or AEW did it with Cody in the world title. Like you had a feeling that they were going to try to work their way around it, and kudos to AEW for actually finishing up that storyline and having it go that way, that he can't challenge for the belt. But it's just one of those things that it makes you wonder what they were thinking at the time. Having Raven as the champion is a little bit like, again, we mentioned this a couple months ago, like nobody thought Raven would be the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, like nobody. So it just makes you wonder like what their thought process is. So I mean, I guess that's the only good thing about it, is that it gave you that sense of, what are they going to do next? Jarrett's not the contender, but is Rhino the contender? And, how long will Raven hold the title that nobody thought he would win? So, I mean, I guess it left questions at the end. So that is not a terrible thing, because people will tune in to find out the answers to the questions. So, hindsight being 50-50, I don't know if I would have, it's hard not to finish with a championship match per se, but it like Tim said, it's a hardcore style match, that was supposed to be just a regular tag team match. So it's weird that it kind of went the way that it did, but nothing special, but again, nothing terrible either. And it was an interesting match to finish the show, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. That was a disgrace to have as a main event. And the whole, he gets a title shot if he pins. It's not needed. It's not a title match. It shouldn't have been in the main event. I agree with both of you. Samoa Joe, AJ Styles should have closed out. So you could skip this match, because it's cool if you want to see a hardcore match with basically ECW originals, to see Jared, have the crimson mask with a shocked look on his face at the end. But it was just there for me. I mean, it's just, you can't go from that hype match of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles to this, because this is such a letdown after. Like, you just saw arguably one of TNA's best matches in their history to this. You saw Sean Waltman, deliver, and then you have this. It killed their momentum. So honestly, if you're going to watch this pay-per-view, start with Christopher Daniels, Austin Aries, end with Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and this pay-per-view would be a solid 7 or 8. This brings it down to like a 5 for me. Not to jump ahead and skip the ratings with you guys, but it was a good match, but it was just a ECW Extreme match. Like, it wasn't needed. It was there to please the crowd. It was there to give the ECW pop. I think it was there just to get that ECW crowd, because they knew that the ECW sci-fi crap was terrible. So they were trying to capitalize on that, but it wasn't working. And it's no shot to the performers in the ring. It wasn't needed there. It could have taken place of the 3 Live Crew match. Maybe don't book that match with the Picard, put this in there, that spot, and the pay-per-view would have been fine. That was my little rant. It wasn't needed. It killed the momentum of this pay-per-view. And this is the problem I think they faced, was they tried to give you too much at once, like Tim and you have said before. They try to, here's everything. Let's see what sticks. Everything's stuck. Let's keep throwing it on the wall. No, you're cluttering it. You're killing it.
At a certain point, you run out of wall space.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, so Mongo gave you, his rating. I'm not going to go quite that low. I'll probably give it a 6.5. I thought there were some really solid matches, but yeah, there is a lot that, left a lot to be desired. recommend one match. Obviously, it's going to be Samoa Joe and AJ Styles. However, my close second might surprise you. I'm going to go with the Shelley Strucker match. I really like that one. I thought that was a sleeper match that definitely should be checked out. But yeah, the main event kind of was disappointing. 3-Life Crew match, Team Canada match was kind of disappointing. And I wasn't really crazy about how they started off the show. So, but I'll give it about 6.5 range.
So think of it this way. Every match that we crapped on or that we didn't like had more than 2 people in it.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you had a one-on-one match and they were able to wrestle and have a match, they were fire. Any other time it had more than 2 people, it was a bit of a cluster, and no one really. It just even though that first match was still a pretty impressive match and it had some impressive people in it, and same with the 8-man tag, and it's just too much going on at once that it's hard to focus on the wrestlers, the match itself, the storytelling. So yeah, I agree. Somewhere in the 6.5 range for me. And you knock out a couple of those clustery matches. Like, why? Like, I don't understand the whole AMW Team Canada thing. Like, okay, you both hate Team Canada. Well, why don't you guys face each other, and then the winner gets to face Team Canada instead of doing like the enemy of my enemy is my friend concept, which has been done so many times that it's just old and it's stale. And usually, like, how many times has a team come together that doesn't like each other to face somebody else? They don't have dissension. It happens every time. So it's just it's boring, drawn out. It still happens today. So, but yeah, somewhere in the 6.5 range. And yeah, to be honest with you, you could watch the Jerry Lynn Waltman match. You could watch the Aries Daniels match. You could watch the Joe and AJ match. Like, there's so much stuff on here that you could watch, that you could enjoy. So pick any of them, watch them all. Once you get to a match that has more than 2 people, just fast forward through it, I guess is what I'm saying. And you would enjoy the show. It'd probably be like an hour and a half show, but it would be like a NXT banger show. It would be like an NXT banger show where they had just like awesome match after awesome match, and it was a shorter show, but like people loved them. And that's the thing with, like, especially with WWE now with Raw and stuff, the shows are just too damn long. Like, it's just short, like AEW doing a 1-hour show. That's genius. You can have like 3 or 4 matches, and then that's it. Like, that's all you don't need all this garbage in between. You just don't.
And how fun are those to go to? If you want to go out and have a fun time, like, you already know it's going to take you between 45 minutes to an hour of travel time potentially to get most places, depending where you live. It's going to take another half an hour parking, blah, 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 blah. You don't want to sit 4 hours in a venue and then have to do all that in reverse to go home, because then you're just exhausted and it takes the fun out. So you do a 2-hour show, or you do, like a 2.5-hour show, it works out great. But you do something that's like 4 hours, and it's just going to be just too much.
Sorry, Roland and I are laughing because was that the microphone? Okay.
Bottle of leaf fell over.
That's the loudest bottle of leaf that I've ever heard.
It literally sounded like the house was caving in. That was pretty loud. Was it right by the microphone? Is that why, Mongo? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, because like Tim and I are just looking at each other like, what the fuck was that?
Full disclosure, before we came on the air, we were talking about how Mongo has to hold up his microphone and was afraid that it was going to fall over. So I was thinking if that was the microphone, that was some foreshadowing right there.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Well, on that note, we probably should wrap up this show. So that's
one of those to leave now.
Yeah. So that was our breakdown of Sacrifice 05. Coming up for you guys next week, it is SummerSlam time. So we're going to give you our predictions for SummerSlam 2021. Quick programming note: SummerSlam is actually on Saturday next week, not Sunday. So if you weren't aware of that, you are now. So we're going to post our show a little bit earlier than normal. We're going to post it probably around the noontime hour, just to give you guys a little chance to hear our predictions before SummerSlam starts. SummerSlam, I'm guessing, will probably start at 7, and they usually do like a 2-hour pre-show. So that's probably right around the time where we post our normal episode. So we're going to post a little bit early for you guys around noontime to give you a chance to listen to us.
Yeah, no, it's a no-brainer. You don't want to have a potentially hour and a half podcast like end pretty much when SummerSlam starts. You don't. It's like Mongo was saying. You don't want to have all this wrestling like jammed together, and you feel like it's like driving there and leaving, and you're worn out by the time it happens. So we want you guys to have a little bit of time in between to listen to our predictions and stuff, and do all that, and then have a break so you don't have to go right into SummerSlam and be like, yeah, I get to watch Goldberg. So it just gives you a little more time to not have to feel like it's getting all crammed down your throat. And it's just, Tim, that was a great idea. I know last week I said you have no good ideas. This was a good idea. It was a great idea to make sure that we got it out early enough so people could actually listen to it and enjoy it and not have it all crammed together.
I agree. Kudos to him again. See, you say you don't have good ideas, but see, that's where you're wrong, sir, because that is a smart idea. Because I once went to see the Dark Knight trilogy in theaters when the new one was releasing. Me and my friend Pat were like, let's go watch, they're going to show Batman Begins, then they're going to show Dark Knight, then they're going to lead right to Dark Knight Rises. It'd be great. It's not great when you get to like that fourth hour and you're just like, I've seen way too much Batman for one lifetime. I'm so like superhero movie now. I want to go home. Like I was so miserable, and that's kind of what would happen if you have to get too much like a wrestling. I've been to WrestleManias where after 5 or 6 hours you're just like, I'm burnt out. So it's good to have kind of a little break in between. That's why I like when we do the show, because it's not like we have to watch like 10 pay-per-views to do one episode. Because that would be burnout. And it's refreshing to only have to watch a few matches or get excited. So it'll be fun doing the prediction show for SummerSlam, because I think we can give our thoughts. We'll try not to go too hard on the current product, but our views on it. But I'm excited because I'm actually going to be at Live 9 down at Kowloon. Matt Cardona's podcast, the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, is having a SummerSlam viewing party down there. So that'll be fun. We're going to watch it down there. So actually that's what's going to make me more excited to watch, is I get to watch it there versus have to fall asleep on the couch. Because let's be real, you said Goldberg. I feel like that's just going to be either the biggest match or I don't know. I'll save it for next week, but not really looking forward to that Goldberg's back. Let's put it that way.
Rollins on mute at the end of the show.
No comment at all. I like the Goldberg thing. I just, what's funny is I hit the button, but it didn't do anything. I got it. I was ready, but yeah, no comment on the whole Goldberg thing. You guys already know how I feel about that. So
yeah, we'll save our hot takes for next week on our prediction show for SummerSlam. So again, we're gonna post around noontime next week. Thanks for tuning us in today. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell your friends, tell your family members, tell strangers, tell anybody you want. Visit us, www.pap.com. Listen to us on all your favorite podcast platforms. And we will see you guys next week. Until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Pulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present.
I hope you're all having a nice day.